G'day Internet, welcome to another episode of Morgan Makes. My name's Morgan, and today we're going to be painting some 3D printed terrain. I have these pieces here, which I have just completed. Very, very nice. A friend of mine gave me these 3D prints as thank you for helping me clean up some of the flood damage in his house after the recent Hawkesbury floods out here in Sydney. So I did those, and I'm going to give one to another mate, and I'm going to give one of them back to him. And I did all of this with just one paintbrush. So let's see how I did it. So this is the prints that my friend gave me. They're printed in ABS with a 0.1mm resolution. The one on the left is an Imperial Guard Sentinel, and the one on the right is a Space Marine Dreadnought. Both have seen better days. I've been playing Warhammer 40k since about 2008, but in the current economic climate they want to charge out the nose for their 3D printed terrain. So I'm going to 3D print my own terrain, or have a mate do it for me, and then paint it up to see how it goes. But first we got to get some bases on them. You know, give a little bit of something to stick to, something to paint up. So we're going to cut out some of this card here. It's a grey chipboard I got from Officeworks. It's a 1200 GM grey chipboard. Good stuff. I love this stuff. And with no preamble or ceremony, I'm just going to stick them straight to the pieces of card using multi-grip glue. But first off, I'm going to trim the corners clear and round with my side cutters here. Make them all nice and neat. So I just draw some random patterns on both the bottom of the model and on the top side of the cardboard there, and then just plop them down. I'm using the rougher of the two sides of the cardboard as the top side because I want that extra definition and texture for things. And like I said before, we've had some recent flooding in the area, so we've had helicopters coming in and out, and one of the relief helicopters just decided to pick right when I was filming outside to come in and land in the oval right next to my house. You guys mind? I'm trying to film here. So now it's time to get to some painting. And starting with some Cathlan Brown, or any dark brown that you've got lying around. This is just an old pot that I happen to have. You paint the dirt parts dirt. Easy as that. I'm using a 1/2-inch tank brush, and I'm going to be using that same brush for the entirety of this project. The thing I love about painting terrain is that neatness counts for very little here. So you can just have at it. So just paint it brown, fix it later, don't fix it later, it really doesn't matter. You know, you can sort of work as a kindergartner, you know, not sort of really keeping in between the lines, but, you know, trying a little bit. Anyway, so I'm just going to paint the dirt parts brown, and, yeah, leave it at that. Yes, paint it all brown. Okay, so now all the dirt parts are brown, it's time to move on to the gunmetal, and we're using lead belcher. This is a really old pot of lead belcher that I have, but it's the last one I got, so I'm going to use it. Feel free to use whatever metallic tone you got lying around.
Lead belcher.
Ooh, she old. It's alright. So's the model. Lumpy metal makes it look like it's been sitting there for 1,000 years. I'm not worried about overlapping or anything like that. Sloppiness adds to the realism. There, here's metal too, I reckon. The technique that I'm using here could best be described as a slopping on / dry brush. Just trying to get as much paint into the nooks and crannies as possible, and I'm not really caring about neatness again. Now both models are painted brown and silver, let's add some texture to the ground. I finally get a chance to use this stuff. Citadel gave me so much of it when I subscribed to their little thing. And that should fill in that border nicely. Give some roughness to the terrain as well. I'm going to probably have to repaint this brown, but it's alright. Wasn't supposed to be all uniformly one colour anyway. Tool making is what separates us from the primates. So I ended up using the cut-off end of a zip tie just to help me manipulate the paint a little bit, because this stuff's very, very thick and goopy. And if you want to make it yourself, I do believe the recipe for this is equal parts by weight paint, sand, and PVA glue. Yeah, you don't have to go buy the Games Workshop stuff for this. I don't think it's relatively easy to do.
A little bit of texture and colour to the amount of dirt here. Yeah, that took a lot of the definition out of the 3D print lines. That's perfect. Look at that. Can you see that? That looks nice. Like it had been there for a while.
Okay, now the ground is looking a lot more like a ground. Let's move on to the green. And we're using Caliban Green, but if you've got whatever you got, it's just a dark green. Any old dark green will work, and we're just going to splodge that on with the old tank brush. We're not going for total coverage. I still want to be able to see a great deal of the grey and brown underneath this. And then we're going back to the Cathlan Brown again, and we're just going to rinse and repeat. Same process as we just did with the green. And now if you've been following along, you should have something that looks kind of like a army camo type of colour. And we're just going to take some of this Agrax Earthshade wash, or if you just got any kind of dark tinted wash, whatever, that'll work. And while those two previous layers are still wet, whack it on, a fair coat of it, and let it all blend together. It's going to look like mud afterwards, but trust me, the results are fantastic. For this one, you're going to want to make sure that the wash gets right up to the base edges of the model to look like it's been sitting in the dirt and the mud for, a decade or more. The Adeptus Mechanicus always comes back for the machinery, but never in a timely manner. Then for the machinery itself, we're going to hit it with some Null and Oil. This is a classic of all Warhammer modelers and painters everywhere. Everyone loves this stuff. I want to make sure that I cover all the mechanical and metal pieces entirely in the Null and Oil. Even the parts that I'm going to paint over the top of afterwards, just in case that I miss anything, or if the brush doesn't reach it, it's just going to make the definition of the, little details pop a little bit more. It's, just going to make it a little bit more exciting with very little effort. And as you can see, they are coming up beautifully. And as they stand at the moment, they'd probably be pride of place on any casual kitchen table game. But we want to sort of take it to the next level, so let's add some colour. Let's go with some Mephiston Red, because I play Blood Angels, so that's what that Dreadnought's becoming. It's a Blood Angel. Or was a Blood Angel. I mean, I highly doubt the Blood Angels would let one of their Dreadnoughts languish in a field like this for a decade or more, but it's my planet, it's my rules, my game, who cares? The Sentinel's getting a similar coat of Straken Green, because it's a really nice army tan looking green colour when it dries, Cadia still stands. Then as a next level highlight to all this, and to add some real age, we're going to hit it with some Ryza Rust technical coat. This stuff goes on really, really bright, and it dries really, really dull, and looks kind of really like authentic rust. Really, really, really. It was at this stage of the operation that I kind of need to start to pay attention to what I'm doing. So this is just going on as a dry brush. Very simple technique, just a little bit on the brush, and just smear it off the edges and then paint it in as it goes. Yeah, this stuff looks very nice. But with the rust done, I think that's it for the painting. Now it's on to the really fun stuff. Let's move on to the flocking. So, starting with some PVA glue that you can get from craft store, hardware store, supermarket, wherever. It's fairly easy to get. Any type will do. Just with the tank brush, paint it on. And then I've got some of this Steppe Grass that I picked up from the hobby store. I've had this for a little bit, and I'm just going to grab a pinch of that and just dab it on and then pour it back off into the little container there. It's going to make a little bit of a mess, but I'm going to vacuum later. Should be right. The glue needs to go down in a fairly thick coat, but not too thick, just so you can kind of see through it in the high parts there, like kind of what I got here. And then you just, take a big old pinch of this, break it up a bit, and smash it in there with your fingers. A little bit goes a long way with this stuff, which is why we painted the ground beforehand. So any parts that we missed just look like grass or dirt underneath. And you see, doing two pieces of this size, use hardly any of this stuff. It goes a long way. And just as a little experiment, I did a small square without any painted background, just to show you what it looks like without it. And as you see, the results are not great. Now to add some highlights to the flocking, we're going to use this parched straw grass and a cotton tip, just to, put some dollops of glue down around the place, and just, drop a pinch or two over that and drop that back into the little pot there. It's easy as, and adds a really, really nice kind of flair to it, dead grass growing in the little sort of nooks and crannies, bits and pieces. There's no such thing as too much of a good thing when gardening in this fashion. I love it. Maybe you think I went a bit far by the end, maybe you think I didn't go far enough. Who knows? That's for you to decide. And if you're doing your own, you can make it your own. Go for it. I encourage you. But now that I feel that I've got an appropriate amount of dead grass on both the models, it's time to move on to some autumn bushes, like some nests and bushes and trees and stuff. Dead things that have grown or been collected by animals and rodents around the place. Things like to make nests in machinery. I've been around old machinery. I know what it looks like. So using the same technique as before, we're just going to take the cotton tip and put some dollops of glue down in some of the little crevices there, and then just shove a bit of this orange and yellow foam in there. And it'll stick. It'll stay there once that glue sets. We know from abandoned places that nature will quickly overtake and reclaim what we got. So I'm trying to, recreate that feel with this. These war machines have been sitting here silenced for more than a decade. Nature has taken them over. The grass is clipped short around them from wild grazing animals. The joints and voids within are filled with branches and nests from various rodents. The good stuff. I have some dead grass clumps from the hobby store. Just peel them off the sticky pad with your knife and just stick them down with a glob of glue. Easy done. Also in my collection are multicolored flowers. One of these models is getting red flowers. I think the Dreadnought deserves red flowers. Pretty red flowers. And the Sentinel can have yellow flowers. Some sticking out the tailpipe there. I'm only adding 2 bunches to each model of each colour. Keep it conservative on this. They're just a highlight after all. And then after all that, we need to attempt to spray it with water. However, this is a water PVA mix, 50-50 by volume. But my sprayer was, it shot itself, so it wasn't working for me, so I just had to use droplets. It was fine. But then I left them to set overnight, and they are done. And my word, they look good. Absolutely perfect. I think the boys are really going to like these. I'm very happy with the results here. I would feel 110% comfortable putting them on any game table in Australia. And not be laughed at. It's happened before.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you may have learned something. I forgot how much fun painting terrain is, or just doing tabletop gaming in general. I definitely got to get back into it more, so expect more of this content later on. Anyway, my name's been Morgan. I hope you have a fantastic day. This has been Morgan Makes. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you next time. Cheers.